Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Check Service Industry Podcast. I am Reyshan Parker, and if you haven't yet, please go watch my television series Beyond the Check, now streaming on Amazon Prime and Tubi TV. Tubi TV, it is free TV, and you get to meet a lot of fantastic, amazing chefs. Yeah, fantastic, amazing chefs from around the country who are running some amazing restaurants. And if you like this, please go follow us on Tastemade. Tastemade, we do a lot of live things, and you could totally be listening to this podcast live and asking my guests questions right now if you were listening and subscribed. So go do that. Speaking of guests, I have a fantastic guest today. He is currently working on saving the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marc Cortez. Hi, Marc.
Hi, Reyshan. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Where are you coming to me from?
I'm coming to you from sunny San Luis Obispo, California, which is about halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles.
I've been. I actually flew into St. Louis Obispo once upon a time about 20 years ago.
Oh, nice. It's a beautiful place.
It is very, very, very chill. It's very, very calm town. It reminds me a lot of St. Augustine, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Like very, very similar low-key towns.
Yeah, it's a college town, so we tend to not to go too far extremes in any direction. So that's a good thing. Touché,
sir. So you do a lot of stuff. You're an author. You've worked in solar and electric and trying to save the world here. It seems like, and you're currently working with water. I'm curious about all of that. Where would you like to start?
Yeah, so I think I was going through the other day, and I think I sold my first solar product in 1999. So I was literally on the northern tip of Africa, which is where the solar market was back then. So trying to put solar panels on farmers in northern Africa to get water out of their wells to help run their farms. So boy, that's a long time coming. So then solar moved on to rooftops for homes, and then onto buildings, and now we have them as huge electrical power plants all over. A lot of them over the Southwest where I'm at, and so it's evolved quite a bit. So and then early on in the days of electric vehicle infrastructure, back when we were building, it basically looked like a gas pump for fast charging stations, but there were no vehicles at the time. So 15 years ago, we had this cool stuff that you could plug into, but there were no cars or vehicles to do it.
Right, because somebody killed that electric car.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly during that time. And so now, of course, we're bringing all that back. Some work in energy storage here in California, and now I'm when you live in California, you live in the West, and you live with drought constantly. I just couldn't help but think, why can't all of these concepts that we've been using for energy, why couldn't we do the same thing for water conservation? So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to incentivize homes and businesses to save water, turn those savings into water conservation credits that other companies can buy if they are looking to manage
lower their footprint.
Water footprints. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Bravo, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So obviously it's a necessity in California, right?
Yes.
Which makes it a necessity. And I find all of the necessities of the world's current issues finally doing something. And I think it's Mars, right? Because Mars is the ultimate necessity. Yeah. But we don't but that's Mars. We don't think, California, that's where we really need the technology to conserve the water. Yeah. Right.
And we're seeing it. It's not just California. I think we just live with it. We've lived with it for so long. But there's plenty of places in the entire West Coast and Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico. We all have drought issues. We're all trying to draw water from the same rivers and things like that. But and certainly it's a global problem. And so we're not alone here. There are parts of the country that get plenty of water and they have other issues, but water is certainly relevant to everybody. So,
and this is kind of full circle. So let's go back to the beginning. In Africa, solar power to get water, right? So it was tied to water from the very beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they were digging, these farmers, very poor farmers, and they're digging, holes in their ground 100 feet, and they need a way to get that water out there. The water's down there, but it's certainly they can't depend on the rain. So they got very creative with different ways that they could go extract that water from the ground.
Just with electrical pumps, very simple electric pumps.
You drop an electrical pump down there and just bring it down into the hole, and you hook it to that solar panel, and it would just start pumping water.
Nice.
Yeah.
Out of necessity. Was that the first use of solar paneling? Was that like?
Yeah, I think solar started out on farms and in the woods, right? And so solar back in the 70s, I think the first solar was invented for the space program to get electricity up in space, because so that's where it came from. So it's really actually very old technology, proven technology, very simple. And then we just started finding better ways to apply it. And of course, as we started to get better understanding of the climate and some of the downsides of burning all this fossil fuels that we all burn so much, then we said, well, maybe there's a way to make things a bit greener and a bit cleaner. And so we started finding better options to use solar on rooftops. Made perfect sense. And then of course, once that happens, I always joke in the industry, we said there wasn't green until there was green, right? Until the financial engineering really got behind all these things, and people could start making some money at it and turn it into a real industry, and just like another option in our energy toolbox, so to speak. So that's the way it worked.
We vote with our dollar. The truth is that, in our democracy, we vote with our dollar. That, and we forget that because our dollar is constantly trying to be controlled and manipulated to get us to spend our dollar and vote in the way that maybe we don't want to. We've just, we watched a commercial and that's where our money's going now.
Yeah.
But consciously spending where we spend our money does change the world.
True. And look, we're seeing it now. I mean, here in California, we got gas is $6.50 a gallon, right? When did that happen? So energy, we need it, and energy is it's certainly in everyone's wallet. When it hits the gas pump, it hurts. Mm-hmm. And so
we bought a Tesla about 6 months ago.
You bought one?
Yeah, and man, timing couldn't have been better.
I drove one this past summer. It's an amazing vehicle to drive. It's just a lot of fun, and so from a technology standpoint, it's just a pleasure. And I think all these electric vehicles, they're fun to drive. They're just, they got all these cool widgets, and they respond really well their way, and so it's a whole.
I always wanted to stick shift again. I miss stick shifts. I miss shifting, I had a Saturn SE2. That was my favorite car.
Yeah.
When I was younger, that I owned, my favorite car I ever had. And it was like supercharged and you could shift. And that was part of the fun, was just racking the gears. But now I drive a Tesla and I don't want any gears. There's no gears, and it's great.
It ramps up and it ramps down. All that stuff. It was kind of a rite of passage, right at the time. You like when you were a teenager. My dad was like, "No, you're learning to drive a shift. You're shifting." And so I did. Now you rarely use it, but at least I know how. And so now it's a whole different. It's a different world, different era.
Yeah, well, now they put them all on the there's a clicker button. What fun is that? There is no fun in shift. No, you need to throw your arm, rip it back.
You need to grind it, right? You need to have your dad look at you don't drop my transmission.
Things kids will never know. It'll be right up there with the rotary phone soon.
Yeah, true.
But anyway, what are these new techniques and technologies that we're using to conserve water? Are we just going back to water catchers on houses and using gray water matter, or what are we doing?
Well, if you're a business, I think you start off by one of the companies that we spoke with when we were starting this company was Coca-Cola, right? And so they have, if you're Coca-Cola and you're some of your big publicly facing environmental goals are water conservation. And so they make these bold statements, and they actually have these initiatives out there in place that say for every gallon of water they use, they give one back. right? So for a company that sells water, basically, right, liquids, and that's a bold statement, and they're legitimately, they make efforts to do that, but this is not an easy thing. I mean, your choices for doing this are going out and restoring watersheds, going out finding new sources of water, taking all your plants and just replacing all of your infrastructure with lower flow devices, valves, toilets, things like that. So it's an expensive multi-year process. And then the kicker is, even when you're done, you still can't get down into your supply chain. So for you to be able to stand up and publicly claim that you are zero water or water neutral, you can't really do it. And so the corporate goals get set, they get put out to the public waits and sees, and then they hand those goals to sustainability directors, and they go, dang, I can't get there, right? Like I need water. And so they just need different options. And so this is just another way for them to do that. They will have potentially exhausted all the other options, or good luck finding a new river or getting the water rights to that new river, right? That's a 20-year process. So they need more options to do this.
Quantity directly and not necessarily quality, because we can clean up the water.
Yeah. So this is really a way to to me, this is the power of the community. So if you can't save enough water yourselves, you can enlist the community to help you do that. And so, and look, we did this with energy. We did this in California when we first tried to introduce solar. We just paid people to do it, right? This is not rocket science. We just pay them, right? Hey, do you want solar? Here's a check. And so we did that. And so paying people to conserve is not a new concept. They actually, here in San Luis Obispo, we actually did that when developers came in and wanted permits for homes. They said no, because we can't get the water. And they said, well, wait a sec. What if I replaced all of the toilets in San Luis Obispo with low flow toilets? That's enough water. And they said, good, go do it. And they did it. So
wow.
They went through and they literally hired plumbers to go door to door, ring doorbells, and say, hey, we'll replace your toilet for free. And then when they did it, enough of them to allow these 200 homes to get built, they did it. So it's not a new concept. It's just, we tend to not, in the larger energy space, we don't ever talk about conservation, right? So,
right, but
I hate to say it, and this is maybe a terrible thing to say, but the best thing that happened to the climate in the past 30 years was COVID. I hate to say it, but because for the past 45 years, our emissions go up, 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 up. And then in 1 year, they went down by 11%. And it's because we just did less stuff, right? We were staying home, we were working out of the house. We found ways to conserve and use
animals started coming back to the cities.
Yeah.
In like 3 months.
Yeah. And so, but it's amazing. So we never talk about that kind of stuff. We never say, what politician is going to stand up and say, the best way to save the planet is just to use less stuff, right? Because they want to take credit for jobs, and they want to build new factories, and they want to employ people, and they want to take credit for all that stuff. So no political message is going to be popular when they say you just got to conserve a little bit more.
I mean, it's not that you can't have stuff. It's just we've stopped recycling, really. We don't fix stuff anymore. We don't, we just throw it all away. Everything is thrown away.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like your TV, right, and here's a big empty wall. I could buy a 50-inch, Asia-made TV for $400.
Yep.
And I can do it in 15 minutes.
And then when it breaks, I'm just gonna throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So you literally can't. I mean, I suppose they're fixable somehow, but like it's not like you could back in the day. You took your TV apart, you replaced some tubes, right, that you got at the hardware store. Like, where are you going to go out? Buy chips and cards and soldering irons and like come back and rewire the board?
Yeah. And it's so cheap. You're like, oh man, am I really going to spend my Saturday afternoon doing this? I can just, there's the Best Buy. I'll just go down there and just buy the dang thing. And there, it's worth it. It's worth it to me. So
you think a lot of that LCD material they would want back, because it is a scarce material to make flat screen.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see more of that. We're starting to see more recycling of that. Certainly these days, with all the supply chain issues that we have, that's we're getting back to that.
Like, you know what? Maybe we should take some of our stuff back.
Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't just throw it in the earth.
Like, I don't even see like the can recycling machines in Georgia. Like, we don't have the bottle. We don't even recycle bottles in Savannah at all.
Oh no, not
No,
anymore
not at
now.
all. We can't even get solar benefits. Georgia doesn't give any solar benefits. In fact, we have to pay if we want solar because to the electric company.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
so
they want us to pay them.
yeah.
Instead of, because in what California, it's the opposite, right? In most of the rest of the states, it's the opposite.
Yeah, well, so it depends. The answer is always it depends, right? Because it depends on the political system, and look, all energy there's no such thing as unsubsidized energy. There just isn't. Every energy source is subsidized. So the question is, who subsidizes it, and what do they subsidize? So here in California, they fell in love with solar decades ago, and so they subsidize the heck out of it. Electric vehicles are the same thing. So other parts of the country, not so much, right? They'll subsidize local production, local
Gas.
jobs. So it's a very political. It's politics and energy are intertwined. They do not ever separate. As much as people hate it, it's just a simple reality of our energy life.
Our energy life, our capitalistic life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fixable, but you have to break the chains of a financial gain to systems that aren't necessarily good as financial gainers,
Yeah.
Healthcare, energy, and food.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly right. I think, part of, part of what led me to you is this journey of, when you work in renewables, I always make a joke. If you ask a surgeon what the best way to solve a medical problem, he'll say surgery, right? If you ask a solar guy what's the best way to solve energy problem, they'll go solar. So this is nothing. It's just the way that it is. And so solar is a wonderful technology. Wind is a wonderful technology. They all have their place in the energy continuum, but none of them are the answer to everything, right? We just need this broad perspective on this. Conservation is absolutely needed. Reforestation is absolutely needed. All of these things, but it comes down to politics and who's going to pay for stuff. And again, who takes credit for the solutions? And that's where things typically fall apart. So,
we just have to get slapped in the face, right? COVID was a slap in the face, and and just like in our own lives, if we're messing up or going down the wrong path, life shows us signs. They're like, hey, you should probably stop doing that, and it's up to you whether you listen or not, right? And so it's up to us as a population to make the decision, right? But it's baby steps. It's who do you elect, right? Like, are you electing the right person? Who fucking knows, man?
All that stuff. But I also think part of what's happened within the environment and with energy in general is it's sort of always someone else's problem, right? So you always hear we got to change the system, and I keep thinking, which system are we changing? Because my system here in California is different than your system in Georgia is different than Africa's. Everyone's got different goals. I mean, the idea that you're going to introduce massive amounts of intermittent and unreliable and government-funded energy into a developing nation like Africa is sort of ridiculous, right? Because they want oil. They want to grow themselves out of poverty like the rest of the world has done. So this sort of it's a bit of misplaced morality when us developed countries come into Africa and say, what you really need is solar is to not use the same stuff that lifted us out of poverty, because that's bad, right? So it just doesn't work. So part of what has happened, and I think part of why I started down writing this book, is just as a way to tell a more complete truth, and start having a dialogue. And the idea that we're going to have one document that the entire world adopts is pretty ridiculous, right? We can't even do it in our own country. So I don't really have much confidence that's going to happen across the world.
No, it's a generational change, right? Everything is a generational change. We're on the backside of what was a terrible I hope we are. I think we are of a terrible downslide that only happened in the last 100 years, right? So we went from basic everything's organic in real life, right? And you can drink out of a stream in your backyard to don't even let your dog drink that water And this food has zero nutrients, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, but now we're on the, I think we peaked. We realized how fucking retarded that was. And now we're starting to realize what happened to us, why we're all so unhealthy, what is in our food. Oh my God, should I know what's in my food? We should probably know what's in our food.
Well, you probably deal with this. You deal with this every day, right? In your business, and so this is just front and center for you. You're just constantly having to deal with this.
I mean, I get to talk to a lot of people that, and so when I'm in the rest of the world, and and people will argue with you about this, that, the other, and because health is all over the place, right? Like you can't. Anybody can take a point and you can just go to town. Meat's terrible for you. Meat's good for you, right? Like,
right.
Actually, the truth is conservation of what you're eating and diversity of what you're eating is healthy. That's the truth. It's always in the middle. Like nothing's actually bad for you unless you overdo it. Nothing's actually good for you unless you overdo it. Very, very tough things.
Yeah, it's true, right? I mean, and that's just true of most things. It's hard to you don't know. I don't know how we got here to this point where it's just these two polar opposites on pretty much everything. I mean, a lot of people will blame social media, and that's certainly a factor. But who knows, right? It's like, and again, for me on the climate side, I'm just like, it's amazing how little dialogue that we have. But like you just alluded to, like you just introduced a different opinion, and then people will dogpile you, right? It's like, just and what you just said was very simple, right? Well, just red meat by itself is not going to kill you or heal you. If you eat a cow every day, you probably have some problems.
Yep.
Right.
So you can drink 7 drinks a week and not harm your body in any way, shape, or form. It's basically neutral, right? But anything over that 7 drinks, you start to harm yourself. Anything under those, who cares, right? It's like you can eat a piece of broccoli. It's not going to really do that much for you. You probably need to eat more.
Yeah, right. So just this idea of trying to come back towards the middle, and again, that's why when I was starting this book, and you start venturing into some different opinions about the climate, which is, you know what, we're really not going to die by Thursday. I can pretty much assure you that we're not going to do that. And people will scream at you. You don't do this sort of thing because you want to take the easy path. You're doing it because, boy, you want some critical thinking and you want some logical thought put behind this. We're being asked to spend trillions of dollars and really reverse global economies for something that people are still scratching their head about. And so it's a pretty difficult thing to do. And so that's just like what you're wrestling with, just this idea that we can, we as a country, we're great at solving stuff when we actually can talk about it. And that's one of the best things about us. I love about it is different opinions. We can get into a room, we can talk and yell and have different opinions, and then still sit down and have a nice meal and drink some wine and be friends. Right. That's the best thing about us. So I just want to, I encourage us to continue to do this with all these different subjects.
So when it comes to like conserving on our daily basis, like what we have now, so like a straw problem, just like these little tiny problems that we have, packaging problems, right? Like we overpack, just stuff that we don't need. You order something, you get it, it comes in this huge box. It has like all this wrappers that has, it's wrapped 3 times in plastic, and like, you're just like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Was that necessary? Could I carry around my little utensils in my car or my pocket so I don't have to take the plastic spoons? And can I carry the straw? How much of a pain in the ass is this to me personally, as opposed to just being handed all this disposable crap?
Yeah, and we're doing that, right? I mean, I find I have a plastic fork and a plastic spoon and knife with me, and so when I go to a restaurant and I get takeout and I'm getting some soup, right, I've got a spoon. I don't have to take, because they come in threes, and I don't have to take the spoon and throw out the other stuff. So
right, yeah, you literally just like, what am I ever going to do with this knife? Don't need it. Spork, don't need it.
Yeah, it goes from factory to garbage without even being touched.
Yep. And
so all that stuff. I think those are the simple things. And look, I mean, again, conservation. I don't want to over promise this, but I think it just gets overlooked, and it's one of these things that that in all of us, having different things that we can do that will help, and they all help. I can tell you just from having done the math, if you want to emit less from your own personal house, and you've got a choice of spending however much money on a solar system or coming home and turning off your light for an hour, turn off your lights. It's cheaper and it's way better so I mean, it really is stuff
LEDs. I don't know. Ever since the invention of LEDs, I have to admit that I used to walk around my house and be like, hey, why are these lights on? Right? Because they suck so much energy. But now the lights don't pull that much. So I catch myself just like, I could go turn that light off. But who cares?
Yeah. Well, but incremental.
But every little bit counts, right? And it adds up over time.
It does. And so yes, we do need some systemic changes and a transition to electric vehicles. Of course, it will help. The question I always have is it worth the money? And is it worth the money for the government to be underwriting all of these electric vehicle companies in terms of the effect it will have on the environment? So that's still a big question. Same with all of these types of products and companies.
There's just still so much to solve, like storage, right? And I think they're getting close. Did you see that thing about they were doing a battery and they added something to it, and it allowed it to like charge incredibly fast and store it didn't last as long, so they're still trying to solve that problem. Like it would die after about 3 years, but like its charging capacity is retarded and its speed of charging is retarded and its storage capacity is retarded. It just breaks down too fast, and so they're working on fixing the degeneration of whatever new. I can't even remember what it was they did. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
No, I don't specifically, but there's all these minerals that we're folding in. There's zinc, lithium, and they're just it's like a stack of cards. They're constantly reshuffling them and and it's all trade-offs. There's nothing free in the energy game and the energy conversion game. Everything, if you gain something, you're going to lose something, and so you gain speed because heck, we're Americans. We don't want to if we're going to stop to refuel, we want it to be fast. We want there to be a coffee station. We want to get on the road again. So
I drove the Tesla for season 3 of Beyond the Check to Texas, right? And that took we have a low range, so or the regular range, whatever. 200.
How long did it take you to go to make that trip?
26 hours. 26 hours, 9 stops for charging. We're on the road for like 16 hours and charging for 10 hours. So
was it, how did you feel about it when you were doing it? Was it like super inconvenient or somewhere in between?
It really depends on how much of a hurry you're in, because it's nice to stop to let the dogs out, every 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah. But sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere. Right. And I don't know why Tesla hasn't just made their own little like mini mart, right, with their chargers. Like just build little mini marts and put your chargers there because people want to use the bathroom. A lot of places there is no bathroom at the charger in the middle of the night in the middle of a mall parking lot.
Yeah. Well, this will be the next phase, right? It's like I go to there's a Target shopping center down by M, and you go into the back and it's at night and it's lit up. It's just majestic with all the Tesla chargers. It's this empty parking lot full of Tesla charging stations, and maybe there's one person there, but chances are they're not. It looks really cool, but it's just going to take some time for it to catch up.
They're there in the mornings, so like that they all pull in the morning because I was on the road and you see this, and then they're not there for the rest of the day, right? But they all because most people charge at home. The only reason you need to charge is like if you have to commute real far or if you're on the road.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll make that transition. I think it's going to evolve like most things. Like we were talking about the stick shift, right? So I mean it'll just pretty soon like my son still jokes at me when I call it a telephone. He's like, he doesn't even know the word telephone, right? He goes, what is a telephone? And I'll see one in a movie and I'm like, that's a telephone. And forget landline, forget rotaries. It's just like, what you mean, this thing that's attached to a wall that, right? So cars are, we'll just get used to it. The next generation, I think, will just be used to charging the cars. And I think,
Jordan, will you bring me my charger?
That'll be part
my
of it.
Computer charger?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the future.
I think so too. And so, the other thing is one of the reasons that inspired me to maybe speak up more than I had in the past, or at least coalesce some of these ideas was, my own kids, maybe, and you have kids. And then also I teach on a college campus. And, when I talk to the next generation about what's going on with the climate, boy, there's just gloom and doom and this dread about what we're doing.
Sorry, I'm dying. I'm just plugging in. I'm listening.
Oh yeah, no problem. And so we invented this new term for it called eco-anxiety, right? So there's been this whole strategy to just go out and scare the kids, which as a parent and also as a professor, I was one of the early brand architects in the solar industry, so I take messaging very seriously. And so when that is the outcome of what your entire campaigns are about is just fear, then man, that's just uncool. Scaring kids is uncool, and it's just not true. And they're just so hopeless that we're going to kill this planet that they're not even going to be able to have kids. And I think, man, how did we fail so miserably? That's just an absolute failure of messaging and policy. And hopelessness is a bad strategy. It just is, because then you just panic, and then you just say, here, you start throwing money at stuff, and you cross your fingers and hope that something sticks. And it's never going to happen. It's just never going to be a sustainable picture. So anyway, that also inspired me.
Do you remember? I mean, I remember growing up, and like I even gave up on the future as a Generation Xer, because World War III was going to come, or the end of days in 2000, like this was all coming. We all really kind of expected this to happen, right? At least by the end of the Mayan calendar, right? Like and I read all kinds of stuff as a kid, like leading up to what, and even the Bhagavad Gita, all of it, right?
Yeah.
Across all religions, you have this thing happening, whatever it is. And it turns out it's just a shift, right? Turned out it was just a shift in consciousness and people not doing bad things.
Yeah.
Instead of World War III, we tore down the Berlin Wall, right? So turned out there was no reason to be afraid. The end of the world wasn't coming, 2000 happened, we made it through Y2K. 2012 came, the world didn't end, right? Like,
yeah, we survived.
We're all still here.
Survived the rapture.
But that was our fear. Do you remember that? Did you have,
I totally remember that. I'm old enough to remember back in the early climate days where it was the ice age that was coming. So back in the day when this journey first started, oh my God, we're 5 years away from an ice age, and now you bring that up and people go, well, they were just wrong. I'm like, well, yeah, of course they are.
They didn't really think this through.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, yes, we're having an effect. There's 9 billion people on the planet. Are we having an effect on the planet? Of course. Right. So I don't know very many people who would deny that even. The question becomes,
how fast are we affecting it, right? And
and is it really? I always joke. I say, if it's such an emergency, where are all the ambulances? Why isn't anyone giving up the products that they hate on? Right? I don't know one person, and I know hundreds of people in the energy game, and some are just loud screamers. We got to do everything by tomorrow, but I don't know one person who's given up oil, fossil fuels. Right? I mean, it is. Because it's in everything. It's in our clothing. It's in our food. It's in all the electronics. It is. So it's not going away. And
it's not like we don't need it or can't have it. It's just that we don't. It's like having meat on your plate. You don't need all of it all the time.
Yeah.
There's other things you can use. Plastic can have its place, right? And obviously, without plastics, where would we be, right? But we don't have to overuse it. We can replace some shit, right?
and so that's it. I think there doesn't have to be the extreme. Early on in the solar days back in the day, it was always David and Goliath. We were always David, and oil companies were the Goliath. And so we always had it's in our DNA to just put our sights on those guys. they're the big bad wolf, and let's go get them, right? And here is our strategy. So it's kind of hard to say let's not do that, but at this point now we've evolved. Now we're to the point where look at what's going on, and we need some real answers. My thing is we need things that most people can get behind, and we can to have an open dialogue and be transparent, and let's tell the complete truth about all of these different things and be transparent about it so we can make some real and responsible decisions. But right now it's like, well, we got 4 years of this administration that's really pro this, and then it's jet fuel, and then next time it'll just go down, and we'll just keep this pendulum swinging.
2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it just doesn't seem like a way that we're going to solve a global problem.
No, but it's the pressure from the people, right? So corporations have to take the objective point of view that their business model won't last forever. And if they start making changes into a more sustainable business model, the people appreciate that. The people still vote with their dollar for that company, right? And it's the companies who actually are trying to make change and innovation realize that if they don't, that they are the fossils of the fossil fuel industry, right?
Yeah.
And energy. So they have to shift energy. Unfortunately, without those huge conglomerate companies with the trillions of dollars, the shift doesn't take place.
Yeah, very true. I think, again, as much as we love hating these big guys, and look, I'm not defending big oil. They've done lots of awful things. So I'm not going to fly my flag, but my point is we need them, and it's not going away. And so I don't think my view. I worked in solar. Some of the early innovators in solar were oil companies. So big British Petroleum and Shell were 2 of the early innovators. So did they do it because they were awesome, good guys, and that they're trying to save the planet? No, they're trying to make money. So making money is not a terrible thing. And so my view is, if we figure out a way to make money by saving the planet and using less stuff and doing it better, more power to it. Imagine
easy peasy.
All that energy, all that infrastructure that's built up, and this profit motive towards doing something better. It works. We've shown that it can work. So I just don't, going after them as the target and them the bad guys. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think we're all guilty. We're all using.
No, we need a bloodless war.
Yeah,
we need a bloodless war, and that's how change really happens. I mean, the end of the Cold War. What happened? Gorbachev and sat down and actually talked with Reagan, right? They had a chat. That ended the Cold War. Was 2 guys in a room.
Yeah, that's true.
It
Even though and Americans loved Gorbachev and the Russians hated him for that, because all he did was he reached back and he pulled open the curtain. He's like, by the way, we don't have any of this stuff that we keep saying that we do. And Reagan said, we know it, we knew it, and there you go, right?
They still don't. God, did you see the planes that were flying around with the Walmart GPSs to them? Like, good Lord, really? Wow.
I used to when the wall came down in Russia. I used to go to Russia in the 90s, the mid 90s. So I had some business. We were trying to start some businesses. It was fascinating. It's a whole fascinating story, but it's the usual stuff, which it's just not what the world is known, And so once you're there and you have your feet on the ground there, it's just different. Number one, the good news was always, when you sit down and break bread with a family that you've grown up to hate, or the politics of it, life is
still just
simple.
People.
Yeah. You care about your kids, you care about your families, you care about your school, you care about your health. So we have so many more things in common than we have that are that we're against, and that's just a stark realization when you sit down and you eat with someone. But you also realize
should be the number one inherent notion that drives us on the planet, right? In today's day and age, I can't fathom how even in Giza, these 2 sets of human beings can just hate each other so much over shit that they weren't even involved in, right? This is thousands of years of history, and you're fighting over like you weren't even there, man. Like what is this? Why? What is the real reason for your hatred towards this other group of people? Like,
Well, it's I think it's the legacy. You're brought up that way. You're brought up with that whole hate, and breaking the cycle is pretty tough. I don't know. I haven't personally been there, so I don't know what goes into that dynamic. I can just speak to what our own version of our Cold War was. When I went there, I found it to be, Russia's a great country. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. The people are super nice, and like most things, just like America, if you sit down, if you go anywhere in the country and you could sit down and have a meal with someone and you'll walk away going, dang, these are pretty nice people. They're pretty respectful, and colors and ages and diversity. And you'll walk away going, this is pretty solid. But then when you read about it or you see our political establishment, you get a whole different feel. So it's just a different experience.
yeah, the government and people, like,
Yeah.
who do you can't hate the people. The people aren't the government. The government makes decisions of its own accord that we really don't have any power over.
Yeah, and
across the country, and some countries worse so than others, right? And the people really don't have a vote in those countries, right?
Yeah.
Like, Putin hasn't been elected that many times, guys. There's not a chance in hell.
Yeah, you go to China and it's a very different. When I first would go to Russia, and because I'd come from the defense industry, so there was always someone following me, and so it's sort of it gets in your head a bit because they approve your visa, they know you're coming, and they so there was always someone around, and if you're there, I was there 5 or 6 times, and so for a few weeks at a time, so after a few days, you just sort of wave to them because they're just doing their job, right? You're at the same cafe, they're drinking their coffee, and so it's like you realize. I don't know if they do that here for people that come over. Probably some people have that, but you don't take freedom for granted. That's for sure. You just are like, all right, well, they're here to make sure that I don't do anything that I shouldn't be doing, or they want to make sure they know who I'm talking to and all that kind of stuff.
Do you ever watch the Anthony Bourdain episode, Parts Unknown, where he goes to Russia?
I've seen some of the episodes. Yeah.
The Russian one's good.
Well, that was fascinating, right? That was his whole take on it was fascinating.
Yeah, and I have a theory that Putin killed Bourdain because of that episode, but that's just my personal theory. Nope, this isn't online anywhere. But I watched that episode and I was like, Putin killed Bourdain. He was a huge fan. He's like, yeah, Bourdain, of course, yes, you come to Russia, no problem. And then he watched the episode and he was like, oh no.
Very different. Yeah. It's well, that's the experience. Is what you see on camera is very different than what you actually see when you're there. It's I imagine what Bourdain went through was probably the same way. And I would imagine, especially if you go from a food angle and you're trying to experience the culture, it's fantastic, right? What a world opening thing. And I think that's one of the great equalizers of most things.
What did you think of Russian food when you were there?
I didn't. Well, I'll give you a story. So I was, a week into it, and it's the cold St. Petersburg winter, and it's cold. This is not Colorado cold. This is not Michigan cold. This is Russia, cold. North Sea cold. It's cold, and there's a reason they wear those big furry hats. And I'm a guy from California, so I've got everything in my suitcase, and I'm buying stuff. So I'm walking around like a snowman, right? So, and you go in and you just get borscht. Borscht is basically potato in hot water. So, okay, I got borscht. But I'm a week into it, and I'm like, I just want some vegetables, green vegetables. So my translator orders green vegetables. They bring me basically a divot of like a golf course. It was grass. It was green grass. And I said, I'm like, come on, you guys are messing with me. I'm the stupid American, right? I said, I just wanted some green vegetables. And they said, vegetables. And so after about 10 minutes, I was like, I'm looking around. I'm like, you're serious? Like, they're like, no, you ordered green vegetables. This is a green vegetable. So I was like, all right, obviously I'm not getting it. So I ate it, right? I took a bite of it and it was grass. So now, so I don't know what else to say about that, right? So it tasted like grass. And so I ate about half of it, and they're like, but they were totally serious. And so I didn't, at first I thought I was being it was a joke on, but actually at the time, I mean, that was a luxury because it was the middle of winter
and there is nothing green. Yeah.
So, it wasn't good. And it was a potato but having said that, there are so many other things that you had no idea about that were fantastic. And I don't even know the names of them, but they would cook you something and there was some homemade recipe somewhere. The fish was fantastic. Of course, vodka's everywhere. So you have that everywhere. But, I didn't go hungry, and we and I tried a bunch of different things. And, so it was an interesting culinary experience.
They fed you a divot of grass.
I wish it was one of those moments where
I wonder, is that a vegetable to them? Do Russians eat grass?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I'm going to have to Google that. We're Googling. I know some Russians. I'm going to ask them.
And I don't want to, it was not disrespectful. I don't think that they were playing a joke on me. I think that they were trying to honor. I mean, look, this is
all we got, guy.
A Russia winter, the only thing you see is white. So that something green showed up on my plate was
amazing.
Kind of a miracle. So I think they worked pretty hard for it. So I'm not disrespecting it. It was totally, once I got over the idea that I wasn't being played a joke on. Yeah. So they tried hard for that. And I think that, so I don't know. That was just the experience.
Man, Russian winters. They need some greenhouses. Need some greenhouses up there. I've read Chekhov. It's cold.
Yeah. It's cold. It's again, I'm a California guy. That's you don't know about this kind of cold.
I've read Dr. Zhivago. And that's 15 pages in a row of just describing how white and cold it is.
Yeah. There's no other way to describe it. It is all of that.
Oh boy. Mark, this has been fantastic. What can we do just as regular people to conserve some water?
I just say shorter showers, water where you have to, but not overwater. If there's an opportunity to have less plants and have less yards, I know we're doing that here in California. Just be conscious of it. I think a lot of this stuff is just being conscious, going over to the sink and turn it off instead of leaving it on while you're watching that commercial on TV or watching that replay of a slam dunk, right? Just
be aware.
Be aware. Like, we're doing this with so many other things in our lives. Like you went over, you bought a Tesla and now you don't have to think about it, right? So you were conscious about that. It made sense. You're doing incrementally better. And I think that's the idea here. This doesn't have to be this huge
overnight
thing that you never tackle. Small incremental changes, turn your faucets off, use less stuff, put your washer and dryer on cold cycle, right? And just do small incremental things that you won't even notice doing them after you do them a few times.
All right. Where can you're still working on the book?
Book is going to be released next month. It's called Climaturity, and just climaturity.com.
Climaturity.com. Can we follow you anywhere else?
I'm on LinkedIn under Climaturity as well, and those are the places where I usually put whatever rants I have on the climate or whatever is going about that, because I continually, every day I read something that I just shake my head at, thinking, "Come on, man, we're better.
We can do better.
We can do better, right?
Better.
Better. Just
say it with me, people. We can do better.
We can do better. That's right. So."
Awesome. I believe that we can. I believe that we can.
Too.
And thank you for helping us do that.
My pleasure. I love doing it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an enlightening discussion. I've loved all the different things we talked about.
Yeah, we covered some bases. We haven't 100% saved the world yet, but we are working on it one step at a time.
Hey, you know what? It starts by talking, right? It starts by just being willing to talk to each other, and I think that's a big thing.
All right. Sure. Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to Marc Cortez for hanging out. Go check out his book next month. I'm sure it's going to be super insightful. Do better, people. We can do better. We can all do better. Yeah, go watch my television show. Cheers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.